Now, I've always had a great love of things that, I would have always thought of as being liberal, in terms of, people being free to live the kind of lives they want to live. Um, uh, those kind of like, Enlightenment values of, freedom of expression and of appeal to reason and all these sorts of things that led on from like Enlightenment philosophy. Uh, Not that I'm a great expert on these things, but this is what I glean from the culture I grew up in. Yeah. So I've always had a great liking for that. However, there are drawbacks to things which I think are very, very apparent now. And one of them is the very thing which is so great about this kind of philosophy, which is the place of the individual within it, and the freedom of the individual and the rights of the individual. The thing which is so great in this is also the very thing which forms its blind spot. In that the thing is, we don't just live as individuals; we also live in cultures and in collectives. And it's this inability to understand that the two things are not the same. Yeah. I think this is a real problem for the kind of supposed liberalism which has evolved. Yeah. And I know that, like, liberalism has mutated and become combined with leftism and sort of postmodern Marxism, and to the point where it's anything but liberal at all. However, it's definitely a thing that we have this problem of telling the difference between people as individuals and people as things, as mass phenomena, because the two things both exist. And this is why we have this problem with things like, actually, when we see the sort of conflicts that we have arising from things like mass immigration. Now, we can all look at people and say, and treat everybody who comes to this country as an individual, and that's what one would do with looking at people, is to treat them as individuals, and all individuals can, you know, reach the same qualities, the same, the same achievements, etc., etc. Given the opportunity and given certain sorts of innate capacities. Obviously, we're not talking about, say, everyone can be a ballet dancer or everyone can be a first class mathematician or something. But you can look at everybody as individuals. But when you deal with large masses of people, with intact cultures, you're not just talking about individuals, you're talking about collectives which have their own discrete characteristics. And this is where we sometimes get into problems, because this liberal philosophy, this secular humanist philosophy, with its concern for the individual, the rational individual, has no way of being able to accommodate the simultaneous existence of these kind of social and cultural realities which also exist alongside individuals and which can eclipse individuals and which have effects. And the fact is that rational philosophy, that individual philosophy, it was the product of a specific culture. It was the product of European culture. And the idea that it can simply be, we can simply take this almost like we're plucking the head off something and saying, here's what we're going to look at. Here's the flower, yeah, but we're going to take it away from its roots. Well, there's no guarantee that that flower is going to exist. In fact, normally flowers just die, yeah. So we have to, I think, really come to terms with the fact that, especially if we value liberal culture and liberal values, then we have to recognize the actual culture that those things grew out of, yeah, and those things need to be nourished, maintained and protected, and you can't simply mix any culture in and it's all going to come out the same way. Things don't stay the same. Yeah. The idea that this liberal philosophy, this Enlightenment philosophy, is somehow sacrosanct and has this entitlement to exist and survive anything under any circumstances, almost as if it were some sort of like divine revelation. This is an act of incredible hubris as an assertion. There's nothing to say that everything that we have achieved as a culture, everything we've achieved in this way that led to this kind of secular humanism and the sort of liberalism and the rights of the individual and this sort of thing, there's nothing to say that this won't be destroyed by other cultures if you allow it to happen. Because we're not just individuals, we also have collective realities, and we have cultural realities, and we have to take those into account and understand where we are and where we could be going, and ask ourselves if we want to go there.